Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are going to talk about a very common and very useful topic in English: how to talk about your weekend. This is something you will use in real life all the time, whether you are speaking with friends, colleagues, or even during casual conversations at work. People often ask simple questions like, "What did you do this weekend?" or "How was your weekend?" And many learners don't know how to answer in a natural and confident way. So today, we are going to help you speak clearly, naturally, and with more confidence.
Yes, Lucas, I completely agree with you. Talking about your weekend is one of the easiest and most natural ways to practice English, but many learners underestimate it. They think it is too simple, but in reality, it is a powerful exercise because it combines grammar, vocabulary, and storytelling. And like you said, the first step is to give a general idea. Saying, "I had a relaxing weekend," or "I had a busy weekend," immediately helps the listener understand the tone of your story.
Now, Sophie, let me start by asking you a simple question. When someone asks you, "What did you do this weekend?" what is the best way to start your answer? Because many learners either give very short answers like "nothing," or they try to say too much and get lost in their sentences. What do you think is the best approach to make a good first impression when answering this question? From my experience, one of the best ways to answer is to start with a general sentence, something simple that gives an overview of your weekend. For example, you can say, "I had a relaxing weekend," or "I had a very busy weekend." This first sentence gives direction to your story. After that, you can add details step by step. This is very important because it helps your listener follow your story easily.
I also think it is very important to avoid one-word answers. When someone asks you, "What did you do this weekend?" and you say, "Nothing," the conversation stops. But if you say, "I stayed at home and relaxed," now the conversation can continue. So learners need to understand that even simple answers can be expanded.
Let's take a practical example. If I say, "I had a great weekend. On Saturday, I went out with friends, and on Sunday, I stayed home and watched a movie." This is simple, structured, and clear. You don't need complicated grammar. You just need to organize your ideas in a logical way. First general idea, then details. Now let's go deeper into vocabulary. When talking about your weekend, you will often use the past simple tense because you are talking about actions that are finished. Words like went, saw, ate, visited, watched, played are very common, so learners need to be comfortable with these verbs. For example, I went to the beach, I watched a series, I visited my family.
About mistakes, one of the most common problems is the use of verbs. Many learners confuse present and past. For example, they say, "I go to the cinema yesterday," instead of "I went to the cinema." So practicing the past simple is essential for this topic. Repetition is key here.
Another important point is adding emotions and opinions. Don't just say what you did, but also how you felt. This makes your speech more interesting and more human. For example, "I went to the beach and it was amazing." Or, "I stayed at home and I really enjoyed it because I needed to rest." These small details make a big difference. Now, Sophie, let's talk about common mistakes again. What do learners usually do wrong when they talk about their weekend? Because I often hear repetitive sentences, lack of structure, or incorrect verb forms. What advice can we give to help them avoid these mistakes?
I also want to insist on the importance of details. You don't need to say everything, but adding small details makes your story more interesting. For example, instead of saying, "I watched a movie," you can say, "I watched a comedy movie and it was very funny." This gives more life to your sentence.
Another thing we should mention is connection between ideas. Instead of saying short, disconnected sentences, learners should use linking words like and, then, after that, because, so. These words make your speech more natural and more fluent. For example, "I went to the market, then I cooked dinner, and after that, I watched a movie."
Now about the idea of boring weekends, I totally agree with you. There is no boring weekend. Even staying at home can be interesting if you describe it well. For example, "I stayed at home, I cleaned my room, I listened to music, and I relaxed." This is simple but still meaningful.
Now let's imagine a more detailed answer. For example, "I had a very productive weekend. On Saturday morning, I went to the gym, then I worked on a personal project. In the evening, I met some friends and we had dinner together. On Sunday, I stayed home, cleaned my apartment, and prepared for the week. This is a very good answer because it is clear, detailed, and structured. We should also talk about variation. Don't always use the same verbs like go or do. Try to use different words like spend time, hang out, relax, enjoy, explore. This will improve your vocabulary and make your English more interesting.
I also think confidence is very important here. Many learners are afraid to speak because they think their English is not good enough. But this topic is perfect for building confidence because it is based on your own life. You don't need complex ideas, you just need to describe what you did.
Now, Sophie, what about people who think their weekend is not interesting? Many learners say, I did nothing. But I think even simple weekends can be described in a good way. What do you think about that?
Another important thing is practicing regularly. Like you said, after every weekend, learners should try to speak for 1 or 2 minutes about what they did. They can do it alone, record themselves, or speak with a friend. This regular practice makes a big difference.
Another important point is pronunciation and rhythm. When you speak about your weekend, try to speak naturally, not too fast, not too slow. Use pauses. Breathe. This helps your listener understand you better and also makes you sound more confident.
And we should not forget listening. Listening to how native speakers talk about their weekend can help learners understand the rhythm and structure of real conversations. Then they can imitate and improve step by step.
And finally, I want to say something very important. Talking about your weekend is not just about grammar, it is about connection. It is about sharing your life, your experiences, your emotions. So don't be afraid to speak. Even if you make mistakes, the most important thing is to communicate.
Finally, I want to say that this simple question can open many conversations. It is not just about the weekend, it is about communication, connection, and sharing experiences. So learners should use it as an opportunity to practice and grow.
So practice this every week. After your weekend, take a few minutes and try to describe what you did. Step by step, you will improve. And one day, you will speak naturally without thinking too much.
Because at the end of the day, speaking English is not about knowing everything. It is about expressing yourself clearly and confidently.
And that's exactly the goal. Not perfection, but communication.